Arthur O'D is in studio. Hello, Arthur.
Hey, Joe.
And especially a long break for you. You missed the last Slight Tangent, so I don't know when you last...
Probably a week or two before then, so you're going well back. Long time.
We have Michael McCarthy.
Hey, Joe.
And Will O'Callaghan here as well.
You just call him Michael McCarthy.
Yes, I did. Stumbled over that twist. Michael, Mick.
I don't care.
Okay, we'll get to your emails first of all. Slighttangent at offtheball.com. Question for Slight Tangent. How will you change the toy show, Joe? Well, I have some plans. I've been thinking about it. I feel...
Joe, get rid of all those kids for a start. Never work with kids. They're not professional.
Yeah. We need to get back to proper reviews. Like when Pat Kenny would say marks out of 10. I'm far too flimsy of late.
In fairness, I never know any more about toys after the toy show anymore. But
that's my big... That's what I'm going to bring to the party.
Yeah.
More discipline.
Less kind of like kids being reunited with their fathers.
None of that.
More discipline.
None of that transparent pulling of heartstrings.
Good to know. This is an interesting
Guess what?
interview.
He's flown home. Yeah. No, he hasn't. You the toy.
Stop crying. Stop crying. I thought we talked about this before.
What do you want? We did the Skype. He's on Skype. Talk to him.
What are your plans for the Valentine's episode then?
Oh, I don't know. Cancel that. I've never seen the Valentine's. The last Valentine's episode I saw was when O'Gara was on, and he made a comment he regretted.
It was not what I expected this year. So a few years ago, it was like everyone's had quite a few glasses of wine before they go on. You kind of know what to expect. Yeah. This year, they pulled at the heartstrings. They had an elderly couple renew their vows, with Ryan Tuberty renewing the vows as part of the show. Okay. I was not expecting this emotional roller coaster, Joe. Okay. I was thinking, I'm here to a bit of a laugh at the people who are trying to, do blind date style things. And next thing they're going, with this wonderful couple who met first 50 years ago, and lovely inserts from their families and why they should be given a free holiday. I just was not ready for it.
That's nice.
So maybe that could be you next year.
I'd like you to bring back when this happens, when you get to the Late Show.
I'm in talks.
Do you remember the Inventions episode? Do they still do that?
I don't know. So
Gay Bird used to, the people bring out their inventions and show you kind of like it's like a small business sort of thing in the RDS or something like that. But it was on the Late Show every year, and it was one of them was they showed do you remember Styra, the stairs? There's people of them all over the place, but they advertised, honestly, they were on the Late Show in like maybe 1992 or something like that, and advertised possibly even to this day, but certainly up until very recently as seen on the Late Show, which I loved and still love to this day.
Yeah.
But anyway, bring back the Inventions episode as well. And then can I come with you?
Yeah.
EP.
Whatever you want.
Yeah.
We'll negotiate another time. We'll wait till the ad break.
How will you work with the RTE heads?
Well, I'll have
You're
to get
a free thinker. You're not
we're not going to be going when in our late show. We won't be going down to the canteen on a Friday morning.
Well,
I may have made some questionable tweets.
Yeah, you will need to make sure several Slight Tangent episodes have been deleted.
This is slander, lads.
The RTE corner with Mike McCarthy.
This is slander and wrong and false.
Well, I see Miriam has withdrawn her name. That's the breaking news today.
Yep. We're down to you, Claire, Tommy Tiernan and Marty.
Brendan O'Connor, not
Brendan O'Connor,
strong candidate.
Yeah.
I would lean towards Brendan, I have to say.
Just because of his experience or why so?
I think he's very good.
Yeah. So Marty, Brendan, Claire Byrne,
me,
Tommy Tiernan and you.
Hell of a lineup.
Yeah.
You couldn't, I mean,
Jerry Gilroy.
Tommy's too suited to what he's doing.
I know, but I think they'll want them to do it.
But you can't make Tommy interview someone like from Coronation Street on the publicity bus.
Yeah, or someone from the canteen.
Whereas you'll do that. Drop a hat.
How much? I'll do it.
Someone in the canteen is a book.
Good morning / afternoon, lads, is the next email in. Short email, which we appreciate. I would say there are one or two emails which have been too high in the word count for us to read out of late. So just bear that in mind.
I like them being thoughtful. We can do the editing. It's just that we have to do it earlier than we've done it. It's more our fault, I would say. Keep the thoughtful emails coming in.
Okay, fair point. Is it a requirement for the Irish team's ultimate success to have a Northern English coach at the helm? Cheers. And has Andy Farrell attained the honorary Irishman title yet? It is quite something, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Second part first, he definitely has attained a huge amount of love. Even you saw the amount of people who were enjoying the fact that Owen Farrell was unaware that his son Tommy was at the captain's run last Friday, and that Andy Farrell continually brings up that he's trying to sneak them into Irish shirts.
I was next to his son at the game. He was wearing an English jersey.
Spotted that in the picture too. So obviously he didn't win.
But half green scarf, half English scarf.
And I think one of Andy Farrell's other sons was wearing an Ireland shirt.
Grandsons? Sons?
I think it was his son.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So there was definitely mixed family loyalties in the picture. I saw the
How
family
old is
picture.
his son? There's a chance he could be like most of his formative years in Ireland anyway.
I'd imagine probably quite a few, yeah. I think, did he play a bit of Gaelic football, I think, with Nafina as well, or at least that was talked about. I think Philly McMahon brought that up, that Andy Farrell had his young lad up at Nafina for a while. Again, I don't know how far he's played, but he
I did read that, yeah.
definitely did a bit of Gaelic football there.
What is it about the Northern Englishmen that get into our souls?
Accents.
I mean, a red card. Yeah.
Old Farrell. Yeah, Andy Farrell has a great accent. Old Farrell's Wigan accent, I think, takes it to a new level. Is it a record? That was my favourite moment of the match.
Amazing.
It was so shocked.
Red card.
But yeah, no, I thought it's not a serious question, but to give it like in somewhat a way, I do think that there is and it's not just an emigration, the historical emigration thing. I think there's a natural kinship between the north of England and Ireland that would go to, maybe I don't know if is it a working class thing or is it something like that. It feels like we are very much akin to people in the north of England more so than the south, I would say. Yeah,
it does. Very much so.
Scotland, Northern England, and maybe the valleys of Wales and Ireland is, I think, probably...
Yeah. Basically someone from the southeast of England, not welcome.
I didn't say anything about welcome.
Kinship.
I'm
Maybe
saying, what is it about these guys? And I'd say that might have something to do with it.
I don't know if Farrell and Charlton have loads in common, but certainly there is a kind of a straight talking straightforwardness to their communication. Charlton way more gruffer. Andy actually quite nice and pleasant and almost demure at times and kind of shy at times, but
I don't think he is anywhere close to the ego of Charlton.
Probably not, but also speaks in very plain language, digestible to the masses. Something kind of appealing about that, I think, as well.
Players devoted to them, I think, in a very similar way,
Yeah.
even if they're different characters.
True, yeah. Creating a fun environment. Yeah.
What's his background actually, just out of interest? Because he played in the league for an awful long time, so that was professional. And then would have went into union as a professional. Has he just all time, as opposed to like
16,
where there would have been like, was Joe Schmidt had a teaching background,
Yeah.
didn't he?
Like he started playing professionally for Wigan when he was 16. He played for England or Great Britain. I'm not sure when he was 18.
Yeah.
Was it 17?
Youngest
Right.
captain at 21.
Yeah.
Man of Steel award.
I remember watching like when the Super League started. I remember like Andy Farrell
Pete's
was
laughing.
like,
Big star,
Man of
yeah.
Steel's a real award.
he'd be playing. He would have been playing on teams for Wigan, like with Sean Edwards and all. Like, I
Yes.
mean, he's around. He was so long because he's a young enough guy now, but like he's been kind of in the professional rank for like 30
What I find
years.
interesting is that
And then he
that's
went
quite
to Union, played for England.
It's
yeah.
relatively unique, I presume, in rugby union, to actually have someone who has just spent their whole life in rugby.
For someone his age, yeah.
Yeah, like it's just even
Professionally, yeah.
like it just wouldn't.
Matt Williams, who watches that league, would tell you that, and everyone who's watched him would say it, but Matt says he's like phenomenal in the league. Like phenomenal. And then a good union player, but it's very hard to make the switch. So he famously played in the Croke Park game for England. He had switched at that stage, but league was where he was a phenom.
Why did he move? I wonder.
Money, I would
Money,
think.
yeah.
Yeah.
Money
Would've been
ran
better?
out and, yeah, by that stage, yeah. Once the mid 2000s kind of came around, there wasn't any comparison really.
Can I ask you, Arthur, about Saturday? Because I don't think you live and die by whether Ireland win a rugby match or not. That's just not where your head's at.
Wouldn't it? Yeah.
What was it about Saturday, if anything, and it's okay if it did nothing for you, what was it about Saturday that affected you or moved you or grabbed you?
Yeah, no, look, the fate of the team and the sport doesn't really do anything to me because it's never been a part of my life, so that's fine. But I don't wish them any ill. That should also be stated. Like,
Yeah.
I think indifference doesn't mean negativity.
Yeah.
But I was thrilled for Farrell, and there's something that's just very alluring about Sexton. Sexton sort of, for me, sort of transcends it a bit. He doesn't. It's not like I don't know him. I couldn't pretend to know him or what he's like or anything like that. But there's just that impression he gives off. There's something sort of captivating there. He's in that same sort of mould as. It's not like he doesn't seem to be anything like, say, Roy Keane, to take the most venerated example of this. But there is that sort of singularity of will and character. Whereas, and the brilliant thing with him is the fact that he's paired and set up within a team and an institution that's kind of fully backs it and gets to bring the very best out of him then, because that's probably that's kind of probably always been Ireland's problem to a certain degree, that like you have, even if you have these really special individuals that you probably never had to this degree as a surrounding thing that could facilitate them.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm only thinking that now, but that's probably, because we see what's exemplified, like Roy Keane and Man United, for instance, taken on to another level. But yeah, I guess that might be true.
And at what stage in Sexton's career did you hop aboard that bandwagon?
Don't know. Probably only because if you'll think about it, all my consumption of rugby comes from being here, and
it's a lot of rugby.
watching a lot of rugby cover. Like I see an awful lot more rugby covers than I see rugby, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
And it's just, I think when you, the last few years, particularly when people start, maybe something in the whole way the Sexton Carberry situation played out. No ill will towards Joey Carberry whatsoever, but the fact that at certain, maybe 4 years ago, I'd say, it was kind of locked on that this was Joey Carberry's and this was just a matter of time. And now Johnny Sexton, again, not that it was ever a one-off thing between the two of them, but he just saw that off, and I think it probably created an extra layer to the mythicism around him. That it's like he's gone way beyond what, especially 4 years ago, what anyone was talking about he could do.
Yeah.
He's gone way beyond that.
I even saw yesterday, for instance, Bernard Jackman said he's Ireland's greatest rugby player of all time. Jamie Heaslip, I feel, has said that as well. And that's now like this live conversation, which it would not have been if he had hung up his boots 4 years ago. So in that respect, what the last 4 years has done to his legacy as a player is kind of very striking, that these conversations are now happening. I never thought we'd be having debates about O'Driscoll versus anyone for a very long time, and suddenly it's somebody O'Driscoll even played with, which is quite something. And then the other point on Sexton and his personality, and I did draw the parallel to Andy Murray yesterday on Monday Night Rugby. For me, Murray was like this slow burner. I always loved Sexton from day one. I felt like I got him from day one, liked him, and was with him from, when he was bursting to get on ahead of Contepomi for Leinster. But I do feel a bit like Murray, people have got to know his slightly authentic, to the point of gruff, I'm not going to be a performer in the media persona, and have come to love him for it in the way that people love Murray. When I first came across Andy Murray, I thought, I can't be dealing with this level of truculence. He was like Hugh Grant-esque at the Oscars. Just gives a smile on centre court. And over time, I've come to love Murray than pretty much any tennis player in history, and hold him in the similar kind of regard for Sexton. Just that singularity is a good word, of purpose and personality to match. And honestly, in the stadium, I suspect it was very apparent on television. It felt as much about Sexton as about Ireland winning a Grand Slam, which is unbelievable, really.
I think that's proper. I think that's... Maybe that's not the case if Ireland hadn't won a Grand Slam relatively recent memory. Perhaps it's not then, because I do feel there's a sense with this guy, and you'll be better placed to tell me if it's the same thing, I suppose, when O'Driscoll retired as the nearest example of that. But there is a kind of sense of when he's gone, and all due respect to anyone who comes after him. I mean, it's kind of hilarious the fact that O'Gara goes, and it's like you get this guy after him who takes it to another level, you could say.
Yeah.
That's realistically, that's not happening again.
Yeah.
And that's a real, you know what I mean? Like Ireland will have to change because he's gone, rather than
they will.
O'Gara went so suddenly as well, by comparison. Like, you can't always write your own story when you're on the way out. But we knew that Brian O'Driscoll was coming into the last year of his career. He had been very open it was going to be his last Six Nations Championship, while O'Gara didn't get faded around the Aviva because we didn't know that it was coming up to the point that O'Gara's career was about to come to an end. Well, in this case, Johnny Sexton has earmarked a year out that the World Cup is going to be the end of his international career, at least. Most likely it's going to be the end of his Leinster career as well. But you've got a guy who's going at the very top of his game, undisputed best out half in the country at the moment. He's not battling for his place. Exactly, I don't think there's any danger that he wouldn't be the best player for that position right now across the out halves who are playing.
And it's funny, I'd always not dreaded, but I sometimes you're thinking about different things, and it had occurred to me a couple of years ago that I wouldn't enjoy doing this job or being in a Virgin studio and having to turn around to various pundits and say, come on now, Sexton needs to be dropped. He needs to be taken out of the team, doesn't he? We need, like, Ireland are better without Sexton, because that Rog Sexton thing, you had to talk down Rog if you wanted Sexton in, or vice versa.
Sexton, Humphreys. We have this obsession with who's the best 10.
So, but I just would have assumed, well, it's inevitable. Johnny's not going to want to go easily, but it's impossible that he's not going to need to be dropped before the next World Cup when he's 37. That's going to be a not fun 6 months in this job.
Yeah.
And actually, it's turned into the opposite. It's been the greatest victory lap ever.
But if you go back to the lines, like, I still think, and we won't relitigate it, but I still think Gatlin not bringing Sexton one of the most ludicrous decisions of all time.
So does Gatlin at this stage.
He possibly does. I don't know. I'd imagine. You still see a lot of Irish people defending it, and one of the reasons is that Sexton wasn't in form. Now, I absolutely dispute that his form still didn't make him a better out half than Dan Bigger, or, you know what I mean? He absolutely, at the very least, on the plane, right? I still think even on his worst day, he's a better player than Finn Russell, whatever, right? He should have been on the tour, okay? But the fact that he could justify not bringing him shows you Sexton has got better in the last 2 or 3 years. Like, he has become, I don't know whether it's smartness or whether it's adaptation to the game or whether he's leading the change in the game, which I think so much of him in some ways that I almost think he is capable of that, of like changing how an attack is structured in the game of rugby. But he has gone to a new level, as opposed to, he's not even hanging on. To your point, it's like, it's not even that everybody else has fallen away. It's like Sexton has risen it. It's unbelievable at his age. So much so that we're all arguing about whether he should go after the World Cup or not, as opposed to whether he'll make the World Cup.
He shouldn't go, but anyway.
He should.
I'm interested, and it's no reflection on Sexton, but have the people around him gotten worse or stagnated in terms of, like, if you were to pick that Lions team now, so when was that? 2021. So we're like, whatever, it's only 18 months on, but like the same people are still in the same positions. So Silo and Farrell.
It's still Russell and Bigger,
it's still Bigger. Like, is that not a bit odd at the same time? Like, I don't know what that is indicative of.
Good generation.
Anything. But like, is it just, it's
like, Dan Bigger's a good player.
There.
I didn't mean to be, dismissive of him or whatever, and he's won a lot in his career as well. Like, it's a good generation, I think, actually, rather than it necessarily stagnating. But you look at someone who they're expecting big things from, like Marcus Smith, for example, and it's like, don't necessarily see it. I don't think it's a given that every generation is going to be better than the previous one,
What did we think of Saturday generally?
Nervy performance for the first half, probably until the last 25 minutes where Ireland played well. But in a way, you kind of expected that was going to happen. Two factors. You had England, obviously, were trying to get a response. And when you saw Maro Itoje and Van Poortvliet particularly celebrating every single turnover, every single penalty that they got, it was very important for England, after shipping 50 points the week before, to put in a credible performance at the Aviva. And Ireland definitely, I think, with the offloads and with some of the handling errors that happened in the first half particularly, you could tell there was a nervy feeling. And you were in the stadium, Joe. Like, there was a nervy enough feeling about the crowd, I think, up until about 5 or 6 minutes before half time.
I would have said quiet more than nervy. I never really felt anyone thought in a serious way like that
England were going to win.
When we couldn't get a grip of things at all for 10-9 for that long period after they made it 10-9. I was very nervous, and I just assumed I was getting it from the Virgin commentary team, and I felt like it was coming through from the stadium.
That's fair, actually. Yeah, I'll go along with that. And it did cross my mind, is this going to be one of those days? But like the millisecond Henshaw went over, you went, okay, of course.
Oh, yeah. There was never a doubt from there. Yeah.
It was quiet. It was quieter during the game than I thought it was going to be, because the atmosphere was extraordinary pre-game, like really extraordinary. So I half wondered, could that be like, must have been a big corporate element there, because it was such an occasion. And so pre-match, everybody's into it because it's the pageantry and that's easy to get on board with. But somehow, I don't know, at certain moments, certain carries, I thought there'd be more from the crowd.
Yeah,
maybe they were nervy. Maybe it's not the corporate element.
It's not the first game of this championship, though, Joe. You think back to the France game, where a lot of French people got tickets. There were very few English people in the stadium on Saturday just gone by. But at different times when Ireland needed to raise their game, the Aviva was pretty quiet, and the French fans had taken over in that game as well.
Yeah.
So this isn't a problem that began at the weekend just gone by. And sometimes, look, it's up to the team to inspire the supporters to get into it, because definitely after the Henshaw try, the noise started to come up and the expectation was that Ireland were about to make history.
Yeah.
But at different times, when England had got a little bit of a foothold and Farrell's kicking points in the first half, that's possibly when you need the crowd to get behind the team more so than in the second half when it becomes a bit of a cakewalk.
It's very true. It's very true. It's hard to judge to what extent it is corporate or to what extent it was nerves. I mean, You'd need to
I thought
do
that
a
was
census of who was there.
It was a bit affected, no? The nerve part. Like I'm not the Paris. What Brian O'Driscoll was saying as well. Like Ireland were never losing that match. They were never going to lose it. Like it was never. There was that type of thing, almost like we should be nervous now. But it's like even I could see like the balance of play was never. It's an 80-minute match. Like and England sort of took their shot, and it. You know what? How far ahead were they at any point? 6 points from 2 kicks.
Yeah.
On the celebrations, though, you're asking about what the day, what we took from the day.
More so the day, yeah.
I was very appreciative, I suppose, that we were celebrating a Grand Slam for what it was. And I feel like the World Cup was parked a little bit. And I think now we can start talking about the World Cup and what platform we have set ourselves. But we haven't had too many days in this history, and it's a bigger problem with sport in general, I think, is that we can't enjoy things for what they are. We always have to be talking about the biggest things rather than the bigger things or the big things, you know. And it's like, this was a massive thing. It is one of the most important tournaments in all of Irish sport, and we have a shite record over it for hundreds of years, 150 years or whatever. We've done absolutely nothing in it until recently, and now even a championship shouldn't be taken lightly, but a Grand Slam is its own thing. And I did feel like everybody was on board with the proper story.
I
heard very little about the World Cup on Saturday, and I thought the players enjoyed it for what it was as well.
Yeah. You have verbalised what was in my head. Yeah, that I was like, why was it so bloody enjoyable? And it was possibly because it was just, let's enjoy
for
this
itself.
Next hour.
For its own.
It's not. What does this mean for the World Cup, and what does that mean for the World Cup?
If you can't enjoy beating England on St. Patrick's weekend to win a Grand Slam, and then for the 20s to follow that up a little bit under 24 hours later, if you can't enjoy that, what's the point of being a sports fan?
Does St. Patrick's weekend matter to you that much?
I think the fact it was a bank holiday weekend, it gave a long lead into the match.
I even found myself going, even I was like, and it's on St. Patrick's, and in my head I was thinking,
we beat them on St. Patrick's Day a few years ago to win the Grand Slam, and I'd forgotten that up until this week when I was making a montage.
Even as I was saying it, like in intros on Saturday, I was like, St. Patrick's thing.
It matters more for the other countries, I think, to talk about Ireland than it does for us.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there was a bit of a buzz going into it.
And so you were like, and it's on St. Patrick's Day.
I wasn't quite fist pumping now, but like,
I was wearing me shamrock yesterday, and
you know what I mean?
New shamrocks tomorrow.
I've got my new Republic of Ireland socks ready with the big shamrock on.
This is all something that we say, but actually, if we examine our own inner sense of what's going on, I feel like.
Did anybody see the pictures of Will and Kate, our old mates, with their
not me,
St. Patrick's Day get up?
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant him.
No, Prince William and
right.
Prince of Wales and I are not connected.
Okay, not the OTB.
Kate Middleton was wearing an Aer Lingus costume, basically, with a big, huge shamrock on it. And Prince William was wearing his army gear, or whatever it is that he does, his military gear, with a helmet or a cap, with this massive piece of shamrock right in the middle of the front.
Because the Irish Guards.
It was one of those ludicrous things I've ever seen in my life. But anyway, happy St. Patrick's Week to everybody.
Yeah. Okay, we'll take a break. We are back in just a moment. A Slight Tangent is continuing with myself and Mick and Prince William and Arthur. Back in 1 sec. You're very welcome back. A Slight Tangent continuing here on Off the Ball this evening, lads. Topic for Slight Tangent is Formula One all a cod. In my opinion, they should all be driving the same car. Then you'd really know who the best driver is. The best driver, as it is now, may be driving an inferior car, so we'll never have a chance of competing, says Mick in Cork. I, as a non-Formula One fan, agree with that take.
I mean, it's as much to do, like, no more than horse racing, isn't it as much to do with manufacturing the car? As it
way
is.
More even, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's not just a case of...
I always find that a frustration with horse racing as well, that it's very hard to judge a jockey's skill given different horses. But at least they're not stuck on the same horse around 18 different tracks over a calendar year. They get good horses and indifferent horses and bad horses. I think if you're in a bad car...
But right now...
an indifferent horse.
Right now, if you're not in a Red Bull, I don't think you can win the World Championship. I don't think if you're in a Red Bull or a Ferrari, you have much of a chance of winning the race.
Yeah.
And like Lewis Hamilton won 150 World Championships. He's not any worse of a driver, and now he's finishing fifth every race.
So it's completely rigged.
Do you know what I mean? It is like it's
daft.
Rigged. I think is the thing. There is competition between, like, on certain years, I think, in some ways, between cars that are of a similar pace.
They are the best years.
Yeah.
When you have Hamilton versus Verstappen, and it's like, okay, the cars seem to be performing reasonably similarly. Let's see who the best driver is. Sign me up.
Yeah.
But to watch Lewis now,
And even
finishing
then, it's
10th
still
every
very
week.
much like, oh, Mercedes have the advantage around here. And it's sort of, going into the weekend that like it's probably like 3 a year that are genuine competitions, or you're waiting on crashes or pit stops.
Is there not something even for racing fans like very like demoralising about the first race of the season when it becomes apparent that Red Bull are the best car and Mercedes have fallen back, and it's like, okay, here we go for 12 months of a preordained victory.
Yeah.
Well, it's a bit depressing to hear Toto Wolff saying it could be 1 to 2 years before Mercedes are able to compete again. And he says that maybe Lewis Hamilton might actually sign a short-term contract because he realises he doesn't have all that long left and maybe Mercedes can't compete.
But why are you dismissive of the idea? Just as a matter of because you know about it and you were immediately like, no.
Yeah.
So why?
Are you a Formula One fan?
No, like I'm a fan, but I wouldn't
of all
be.
sports.
Yeah, but I would like. I wouldn't be one of those complete and utter Formula One nerds who would know the exact ins and outs of the engine changes that have been made or the dynamic changes that have been made by a team during the summer. There's some people who follow that religiously. It's NFL fans who watch the draft and know everyone coming out of college and would be able to tell you who's going to go in the first round. In Formula One, though, the constructor side of it is actually pretty interesting too. The idea that they're competing to have a slightly better car, timing the times that they make technological changes to their car as well, adds another tactical element to the title race. Admittedly, this year it could be just Verstappen winning by a complete country mile. And it was a little bit dispiriting that last weekend he was way down the grid and he was still able to get back to second place. And part of that is down to the fact that Red Bull have created a remarkable car and the others are playing catch-up at the moment.
Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah.
Like even back in the day when there was dominant teams, if something screwed up and you were 17th in the grid, you weren't winning the race. Now you expect them to. You expect them to get back up. Like
Arthur Acod.
I mean,
Arthur went absolutely nuts one day. I've never seen him so angry when he was asked a Formula One question on the crappy quiz.
Why?
He said it wasn't the sport and went into like an almighty rant. Like.
it was a Joe question, Joe. It was stitched up.
It was named the name. It was the pass the parcel round where everyone goes around till people.
Name a
everyone gets
constructor
one
from
wrong. It was named
1990
named constructors from the 1990s.
I mean,
Fairly reasonable question. Jordan, McLaren, Ferrari.
That's an okay question.
then it's not a cod because they're obviously what stuck with you.
Well,
Go off and watch
Minardi.
A-Series racing, Joe, if you want to watch everyone in the same car going around the track at the same time.
and what's the problem with it?
I don't know. Look, I mean, you're going to find the best driver. I like that that's the angle you're coming from here.
Yeah.
But part of the point of Formula One is that these teams are competing to be better than each other as a team and to provide the best car for their driver. That adds to me just an extra element to it that's not
people
there
are
if it's the
team
same car.
fans sometimes more
Oh, I
than
know.
necessarily driver fans, which is there is an element of interest in that. The A1, is it A1? I can't remember. I only
think
remember
it's
because
the
Ireland
A1
were in it
series,
one time.
yeah.
It was like an international tournament,
Right.
and I think Sky had it for a while before they went all in on Formula One, and.
Wise choice.
Yeah, I think they did make the wise choice, but they tried to pick up A1 for a while. Again, if it was called A1, I can't remember.
I think it was. A1 was the one with
we
the
have a
same
text in
battery,
saying
same
it was
engine.
as well. Yeah, so
It was A1.
but anyway, it was very random because all these people would be on a similar level, so you wouldn't know what would happen from one race to the other. So there's almost no intrigue whatsoever. Then you almost need a hierarchy in a way.
Okay. There was
and
no,
these
no
people,
pattern to A1 almost.
as far as I remember, yeah, I wasn't really watching it. you need guys to almost earn those top spots in a way to get to that point, and then go and say, right, it's Verstappen is the guy at the moment. You know,
And I bet if you asked anyone who was in that A1 series back in the day what they want to do, I want to drive a Formula 1
Oh,
car.
I
but
get-
that's
I
because
get-
that's
I
money
get
and
that.
fame and
Yeah.
Prestige
coverage
and history
Yeah, of
and all
course.
that
Yeah,
stuff.
but that doesn't mean it wouldn't be turn all of that from Formula One and then just say, right, you're on the same car.
Imagine turning around to Red Bull and saying you have to use the exact same car as
Yeah, well,
Mercedes
let's see
next
who's the
year.
best driver
Well done
is.
on all that tech you've done.
I guess it depends. You know,
Let's
does
see,
render
let's-
a lot
well
of
done on all that.
Let's see what kind of juice Bernie Eccleston still has. Is he still running it? Probably.
It does render a lot of people worthless, doesn't it?
Yeah, there'd be jobs could. All right.
Your engineers can go elsewhere.
Yeah, it depends what
They still have to build
perspective
the cars.
you look at it.
They all work
I
together.
look at it from the driver's perspective. I'm interested in the drivers. Whereas I get the tech people might be interested in the tech. I just would have thought that most of the
Dolphins.
tech people don't understand what they're talking about.
I think you want to change the sport for something you would never sit down and actually watch. Or you might watch it one week and go, geez, maybe they shouldn't have made that change.
NASCAR all the same car. Now, I know they're not the same. I mean, I suppose there's less variations in
Less of a
what they
gulf.
can do with it. It's just engines, isn't
And they're
it?
also going around a donut ring.
But that's
as
what I
well,
mean.
which
But
is
it's
less
boring,
exciting.
isn't it?
Oh, I'm not advocating the same ring.
Okay.
On Indifferent Horses, did you guys watch much Cheltenham? I saw a good bit. I thought we were talking during the week and we thought the coverage is brilliant. It looks so good.
Yeah.
But certainly I was watching on Friday and it was very apparent in the Gold Cup that we had touched on the nervousness around racing in the UK. And when a horse went down in the Gold Cup, it was like this shadow. You could almost hear the commentary team saying, "Oh, he's back. It's a bad fall. I think's back in his feet." It was like a shadow over the finish of the Gold Cup, and then almost the relief in all concerns' voices when they were able to say, "That horse is okay. That horse is okay." And I dare say 10 years ago, it wouldn't have been as much of a feature of the post race. They would have certainly remarked upon the fact, "Hey, good news, by the way, that horse is okay." But it was, and just to say again, so and so is okay.
Combine it, Joe, with the fact that we're inserts on this throughout the week on various different topics, which I think was trying to appeal to the naysayers who probably wouldn't be sitting down to watch Charlton.
Yeah,
anyway.
I saw a few of them. It was the guy from Love Island doing them.
Yeah,
They sent him out to do them all.
I knew you'd recognise him.
Which guy?
Chris.
Yeah.
He was friends with Kem.
Why did I ask? I don't know.
I know you said that with a certain effect. That
He could have said any
Ken,
name
I
under the
think.
sun. I would have been.
full well it was Chris and Ken.
They had him doing, the clerk on the safety protocol, which are top, and
They were looking at the
on-
climate control
we're
measures. that they were
sustainable.
using.
It's green. It's a green festival. All that kind of stuff. So
I
very,
bet,
very
I bet
much
most
a
racing
PR.
fans don't care, Joe,
No, they don't.
about those slots.
No.
Okay, can I just? There's an element of like they're being defensive, but in some ways, is why are they? So if they're talking about like, is the horse okay? Is there an element of like? I think our assumption here is like they didn't used to care about that. Now they're only caring.
Yeah, I
because
don't mean to say that.
but I wonder, is it because it was unspoken? Like racing people, horse people love the animals, and I'm not saying this is true or not true. I'm just saying that would be I would imagine certainly where they're coming from, and of course any loss is a tragedy or anything like that. So it's like we don't have to make a big deal of it because that's naturally how we feel. Whereas now I feel like they're under siege in some ways and almost have to make a spectacle over, protesting almost too much on something that I think comes naturally on its own.
That's my point. I absolutely agree. It comes naturally. These people love horses in the main and see them very much as
Not saying
beautiful
there's mistreatment or
animals.
anything,
Yeah,
of course.
there are serious ills.
Bad actors, yeah.
But I thought the kind of like the desperation to like mention it and keep mentioning it is just a symptom of what we had discussed, which is racing, especially in the UK, is under siege.
Yeah,
From who?
definitely the whip controversy at the moment.
The general public, increasingly.
I don't know. I'm not trying to. I'm genuinely curious. I'm just curious what generally
Sentiment, public sentiment.
Yeah, there's some sort of
I think
partisanship in that.
I think there's less tolerance for using animals for our sport. I think in general, and I think we could have arguments about how horses are treated, and you have to say, like, you can have this lovely image in your head of every horse being treated like a king and being looked after to the nth degree, and all they have to do for it is go out racing and go on the gallops, and and that's all. But
They're the winning horses.
read Paul Kimmage's piece a few weeks ago, right? And then tell me that deep down inside you didn't know that was happening in certain places,
Yeah.
Not everywhere, by any means.
And before any of us get too high on our horse, pun intended, like if you stop any of us in a supermarket with our plastic wrapped chicken fillets or meat and say, how do you think this animal or like the countless animals like it were treated? Would you bet your life it was all good? Would you bet your life?
So I'd bet my life the opposite, to be honest, for most of it, for at least 90%, yeah.
So we compartmentalise that as well. Like we're a fairly vicious species on that front.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think
I agree with you, I agree with
because I think anyone's entitled to say, okay, you're very concerned about horses, but
I suppose we can't all be held to a kind of I suppose nothing ever improves if you're going to be a hypocrite for everything that you have a problem with. Like, I mean, there is compartmentalization there, of course there is, but like, is it not okay to have an issue with? And I actually don't have an issue with horse racing. I think there's problems I would love to see fixed and so on, but I'm not like against the idea of it. But if I did, I don't think I have to back that up by
being a vegetarian
or having my issue with the meat industry. I just think that obviously we'd all like a perfect world, but you'd probably do pick and choose in a very natural way. It doesn't make you wrong in the thing you have a problem with.
There's an email in on the cost of tickets for these two Republic of Ireland games, which I'm going to come to in just one moment. Slight tangent, back in a sec. Connor says, is winning the Grand Slam in a World Cup year not totally overrated, considering 3 teams in it are terrible? There was 1 average team and 2 good teams.
We've had lots of World Cup years before, Joe.
Like, there's all truth
Scotland
to
weren't
it.
terrible. That's
There's all truth to it. There is. We have to be realistic about it. It's a very small pool, and if you're peaking when everyone else is kind of on a bit of a downturn,
Yeah,
things can happen. It doesn't make it any less valuable within what it's in, but
that's true.
It is a hard thing to do, though. It is generally 5 or maybe 4 teams that are on a very similar level over, and obviously 1 or 2 will go down. But it is hard to win all of those games, and that's why it isn't done that much. Like I said to you, about like since the Six Nations happened, it's like the numbers are insane. It's like England have won more than France and Wales, and then Ireland next, and then like Scotland and Italy obviously haven't won any. So if you take it out, I think it's 7, 6, 6 and 5 in terms of championships, and then even in Grand Slams, England are at the bottom of that, even though they're at the top of the championships. And it's like Ireland have 3, France have 3, Wales have 3, France have 4, I think, and England have 2. So it's like the Six Nations is incredibly even, you know what I mean, across the board, and it is hard to do all that. There's a reason it's so lauded. I don't think it's just one of those internal rugby things.
There was an email sent in by a Shane Harris. I'm just dropping you an email to ask why nobody is talking about the ridiculous prices the FAI are charging for tickets to the upcoming Ireland games, these being the Latvia game tomorrow and France on Monday. I went to Ticketmaster, and if I was to bring my 2 kids to both games, it's costing €544. There's no option for a children's ticket. It is scandalous that they're looking for that kind of money. €544, 3 people.
yeah, the thing that I appreciate why they're doing it, and even you appreciate why we know today that Evan Ferguson's starting tomorrow in terms of that match. And, they want people to go to the games that nobody really wants to go to. But it's not fair. Like, it's not
too much
it's
money.
not fair. It's really not.
And like they will argue, as the IRFU do, that you want to go to an Elton John concert, what are you paying? You want to do anything, it's expensive. And what's more, market forces would suggest there's more than enough appetite for attendance at these prices. But there is something increasingly, I touched on maybe that corporate aspect to Saturday. There is something that is lamentable about the fact that so many regular people, hardworking
we're in the middle of a cost of
people,
living crisis, Joe.
yeah, are like almost being told, well,
Been priced out of sport,
sport is sort of now a luxury beyond you, whereas a generation ago it wasn't.
What was like, to bring it back to Northern England, for example, in the 1970s and 80s, what was a working class person's outlet? A couple of pounds to go into the terrace and go and see Liverpool or United or whoever. And like, those days are so far gone that like a season ticket now is like, that is your like savings. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you keeping up your season ticket is such a cost. And by the way, that's as cheap as you'll get it. To just go to a game, to just want to go to a match here and there and be a bit of a supporter is and then you take, and it's worse than international level.
On these games, by the way, do we know, were there children's tickets which were obviously no longer available when Shane went to get them, or do we know?
I don't know, but there generally are. There's a schoolboy allocation, for sure. Now, I don't know exactly how those works. Like, in the past, there's been issues where, like, you can't go as a family with schoolboy tickets because they're in a section and so on. So I'm not exactly sure how that works now. But we just had a look on Ticketmaster there a few minutes ago. It was like €175 was the best price for a ticket for both games. You're basically buying both games.
That's not sold out yet, the France game.
No, you can still I think,
combined.
as of a few minutes ago anyway.
I
think it was 120 a few weeks ago. That was the early bird price, I think, if you were looking for the seats. But those seats are probably gone now. So
I think anybody who's got all the normal worries we all have is looking at 175 for 2 matches and saying,
Not a
you're
chance.
okay, I'll watch that at home.
plus 2 trips to Dublin to go to the matches as well, and the costs associated around that.
Oh, and if you
Sure. Yes, but if you're coming from anywhere else, forget about it. You're finished.
thinking from a Dublin-centric point of view.
And by the way, you're leaving the stadium at 10 o'clock on a weeknight. Don't ever forget that, as well as how much we have cut off most of the country from possibly supporting the Irish soccer team, who always play at night now as well. Like, and that's fine. Look, it has to happen that way, and it's the way it is.
Yeah.
But it also is, it's another issue. No, but it's another thing that makes it more difficult to support. I've seen the amount of time, then you go to Ireland match, and that's what you see. You see family, you see, like, you know, parents and children, and they're from Cork or whatever, and you're thinking, like, geez, what's ahead of them here? Like, you know, this is how much does it cost, and it's a hotel, which is, if you can get one. Anyway, I think there's something very sad about it. I think what you're left with is, and whatever about the demand in rugby, the demand in football, except for maybe the France game, isn't that strong, because you will see a lot of seats at the Aviva Stadium tomorrow night for the Latvia game. No matter, there'll be people who buy tickets who don't even go just to get a ticket for the France game. So, you know,
I'm surprised France isn't sold out.
Why are they so expensive? Because
France would have sold out a lot quicker, Joe, if you could have bought a ticket for France in and of itself. I would say a lot of people probably thought twice when it was, say, if it was going to be 175 for a ticket for both, you're thinking, will the FAI eventually cave in after the Latvia game and sell a single ticket at that point? So you're obviously taking a risk that it could sell out before then, but maybe, I don't know. I mean, obviously they've had 2 years where they didn't have fans going through, so maybe Football Ireland, as they call it.
Maybe they're at 95% capacity, and so it's going to be fine. But visually, if this France game is not sold out, there's going to be a lot of questions asked.
Yeah, I'm sure they get rid of those tickets. Stuff needs to be
one way or another.
Yeah, I think they'll find a way to fill it, but I wonder about tomorrow.
Do you keep doing that? It's not going to be many people buying your expensive tickets.
Like, will they be embarrassed on Thursday morning announcing, oh, there's a special quotient of tickets for Monday suddenly on sale for €130? Get them.
All
now.
About how you sell it, Joe. You go, a limited number of tickets have become available. Get them now.
Yeah,
you just have to be careful about these things, because, like, I mean, it's like, if kids, like, what that man paid for those tickets, I would not be able to pay. Right, so when my kids are older and I can't, if I'm not,
he's not paying it.
He's not doing it. Okay,
it's
sorry.
Like if I was to bring
the
2 kids on myself, it's €544.
Yeah, and I have 2 kids, and in about 3-4 years, I would be hoping to take them to lots of different sport, and it's all expensive, by the way. We shouldn't be singling out football. But say if I want to bring them to Ireland match, I do not have that money, and I do not have that money to do 5 times a year for all the, or however many home games we play in a year. Maybe it's 3 different windows or whatever. I just don't have it, and I won't be. And then when do my kids get what I had as a kid when I went to Lansdowne Road in the terrace in a much more affordable way and build that next generation of supporters? It's all very well saying we had COVID and we're down a few bob. These things are important, and you have to think long term as well. It's not just about how much money can we get in today, like, you know. And rugby is in the exact same situation. All the talk of growth in rugby and people watching it and all this, I don't even think about going to the Six Nations games anymore. It doesn't even enter my head, because unless I'm working or something like that and I have the opportunity to do it that way, the idea of trying to find a ticket and then forking out what will end up being about €200 for it plus the cost of the day is ludicrous for something that I can watch on a massive 55-inch TV with you know, Joe and the boys.
Humble brag there.
But not everybody has that. What I mean, not everybody, but, like, you know,
Mr. 55-inch TV over here.
What I mean is, you have HD television, much bigger. It's like, you know,
all that Lele Show money comes in.
These things are important. Jesus, I know.
Come on, the free TVs.
I'll get a 75-inch.
These things.
I'll watch the Late Show on it.
These things are important, though, and it is. The point you made there, which registered most with me, is the fact that lots of parents who would love to bring their kids to go to the games that we went as kids, and, like, so formative. I don't think any of us are all sitting in this room, for instance, if we hadn't been brought to matches growing up or gone, you know, had those formative experiences. And so you're pricing out so many of those people.
Even on a week-to-week basis, Joe, €18 for Gaelic Games matches in the top flight is very expensive for someone who would go regularly.
And, you know, like, I'm critical of the GAA around some of their marquee games. I think €18 is okay.
I think it's very pricey.
For a game.
Yeah.
But, like, a kid doesn't know the difference between league and championship, and they're going along to see their heroes play. I think €18. What?
Well, that's obviously an adult price. The kids' tickets are a bit cheaper.
Come on. Would you stop?
I don't know if you're going to see your team.
They have to turn on the floodlights. What? I don't know. We can't criticise the GA for €18 tickets.
For a standard league game, though, very different to going to a Six Nations match, which is a one-off occasion, or, say, a big international.
Adds up, you know.
It does add up.
You don't have to go to every game. Now,
look,
I appreciate, like, there is a point where you have to say €18 is good value.
I guess my point is, I've lots of mates who would go to games more regularly if they were priced a little bit cheaper. That feels a bit saucy for them to go to matches. Particularly, as Mick and I have argued on this very show.
Would these same mates drop multiples of that on a night out? Be honest.
Possibly.
Possibly or definitely?
Probably. But like
Definitely.
But €18 for games that we've been talking about, phony wars and all this kind of stuff.
I'm not having
it's
18.
pricey.
I'm
They'll
not having
spend more
€18.
than €18 on pints during that game.
Yeah, I'm not having 18.
Which provincial venue is serving pints during a game?
They're getting them at half time or
What do you
before
want
and
an
going in late
adult?
for the match.
What do you want an adult league ticket down to?
I think it should be down to a tenner. I think it's more than reasonable.
It does get expensive in like if you're going all the time. Just championship, like you're saying, right? Like 30, I don't know what, like 35 maybe for the terrace in the Munster Championship. Anyway, say for the hurling, and you know you're talking about 50 quid in the stands and all like that. You know, you do like, and this is more so than anything else. You almost bring families, you know, and
But how much are the children's tickets?
And like you could buy a season ticket.
Yeah.
on every week as well.
Yeah, I think you can, as far as I know, I think it's $7 for a kid's ticket if you. Well, you have to buy in advance now this is down because they don't take cash in the gates anyway. So I think I think OAPs and kids are $7 for the top flight. I think they're $5 for the divisions below that. Open to correction by a couple of euro there. But roughly that, it still adds up and it still means there's lots of people thinking. But remember, the vast majority of games will not sell out in GA during the year.
No, I hear you.
So why not get a few more people in at a slightly lower price?
And you think price is stopping people? I get the point.
it's
If
a
you're
bit of an
going
issue
every
for
week,
them.
and especially if you're travelling around the country and paying for petrol, I get that. But
Yeah.
if you want to pick 2 or 3 games, league games to go to, I think 18 is. Like, look how expensive everything is at the moment.
Yeah, but what
I don't
about
think
Will's
it's
point
totally
though
out of
that
kilter.
like GA stadiums are empty. You know, like I mean,
Yeah, it's a fair
even
point.
you know, what I mean, you're looking at.
I don't think that's a price issue.
I was looking at Cork. No, I don't think it is
it's not
either.
entirely,
but,
no, it's not.
but I mean, you make up the difference in €10 tickets versus €18 tickets.
And if we knock them down to tenner, how many more people do you think?
I
we're
don't
getting?
know. I'm just. I suppose it's worth looking into.
It's worth the
It's
discussion.
worth an experiment, isn't it?
I'm not alone in this. I think I
Experiment.
heard Liam Sheedy a couple of weeks ago saying the same, particularly for the hurling division one, whatever at the football where.
Like they should be paying people to go to the hurling.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
But no,
that's a farce.
when teams are putting out second sides,
We're
and so on,
me and Will are allowed, and Arthur are allowed to say it. You're not.
That's a disgrace.
you're trying to attack the sport of hurling right now. We're going to
Sorry,
get defensive.
I tuned into the highlights, and even Liam Sheedy and Donald were like, "This is a disgrace."
Yeah, and Joanne.
Were you staying up until about 11 for the hurling highlights to start?
This is the
Sunday
week
as well?
before.
I recorded them. I watched them Monday.
Fair enough.
Yeah, the hurling pod. That's where I get my hurling.
That's
news.
where you should get all of your action and listen to.
watch them.
We are out of time. I should just mention that
You were being seriously doubted there.
5 seconds.